you have to make sure that every other minute spent outside that commitment goes towards your preparation, because this exam demands that from you. Around 5 to 10 frameworks could be prepared for every subject, and once you have that, you will be easily able to place in the content and then just write down the answers. So definitely syllabus is the first thing that you should read when you start getting into the civil services journey, and you should imbibe the whole syllabus, because once you have the syllabus in your mind, it actually acts like a chest of drawers. So whenever you get a new information, you know where to place it in your memory. So the more people you talk to, the more support you will feel, and the more valuable inputs you'll get in your life. So cutting yourself off from social life is not a practical thing, but cutting yourself from social media is something that I believe can be done and should be practiced to whatever extent possible. So whenever those lows come, you have to have people around you. You need to have a support system which actually pulls you up from that and keeps you walking down that path. And just be very confident that whatever preparation has happened has happened. And if you're in the hall with yourself, you're competing with others. You're not competing with yourself. You don't need to get 200 marks out of 200. You need to be just better than the people sitting next to you. And some of them have not really put in the effort. You have. So if you're confident in your effort, be very sure that you will give a good attempt.
Hello everyone, today we will be in conversation with Ritwik Mehta, who has secured a law leader rank of 115 in this year's examination of UPSC. Through his previous attempt, Ritwik got into Indian Police Services, but he was always passionate about getting into Indian Administrative Services, which he successfully achieved this year. So Ritwik will be sharing his successful preparation journey with all of us today. And certainly this is going to help a lot of aspirants who are preparing for the examination. So firstly, a very warm welcome and big congratulations to you, Ritwik.
Thank you, sir.
So again, I'll not ask kaisi feeling hai, or how is the feeling, because again, you have been into that zone. How different it was this year?
So when the results came out this year, we were actually on an attachment. We were in Mussoorie, and I was actually just 300-400 meters from Labasna when the results came out. And it was actually very surreal because I was not expecting to get into the list this year, especially considering the fact that, according to me, my best attempt had been CSE 23, in which I got into the IPS. And I was expecting that even if I get my name in the list, it would not really be with such a good rank. And so it felt very unbelievable initially. I actually downloaded the list again to check whether it is true or not. When the feeling finally sunk in, it was a feeling of satisfaction for having achieved what I started planning to do around 7 years ago. So it was really surreal that way.
So Ritwik, again, getting and making civil service as your career. So was it something which you decided later in your life, or was it something which was there within you that again, this is something I want to do as a career? When did it all started?
So the foundation for me deciding to come into civil services actually goes back a long time, because my parents run a publication house known as Spardha Prakashan, which is based off Jamshedpur, and they prepare books for competitive examinations for civil service aspirants of state services in Bihar and Jharkhand. So I've always grown up in an environment in which I was surrounded by books as well as the civil services. My dad was himself in the state forest services, and it was his vision that I should try to make my mark into the field of civil service and public service. And UPSC seemed to be one of the best ways to go forward with it. So back when I was in standard 12, that is when he showed me this dream, and it was his dream that I made my own. It feels really good to have walked that path, a dream which was seen so early, to have walked down that path and now have reached that destination.
So you told that again, it started maybe once you were in standard 12th, right? And that's the crucial time where again students have to decide about their career, and again graduation is something which is a deciding factor, right? So your graduation, again you got into Delhi University Kirori Mal College, right? So was it something strategically decided, yeah, this is something I am going to pursue as my graduation, because this is something which is going to help me as in achieving my dream of clearing this examination?
So when we analyzed the trends of optional at that point of time, geography was one of the subjects which was doing really well. And it was also a subject in which I did have some natural inclination based on what I had studied till class 10. So it seemed like a natural, obvious choice to go with it because I was going to pursue a humanities subject. I did not get into a good college with economics, otherwise that would have also been one of the options which I would have explored. But I really enjoyed geography, and getting into Kirori Mal, which was one of the best departments, which is one of the best departments for geography in India, it felt like this is the place to be. So it was a deliberate intention to go into geography, but then I think later on it did. I really feel grateful that I have gone down that path.
So Ritvik, there are a lot of aspirants who start to prepare for the examination with by seeing many people getting into services, the kind of maybe prestige which it holds to, the kind of power which it holds to, right? So what is your message for the aspirants who want to choose their career as civil services? What is something which should they keep in mind?
So the desire to enter into the civil services, it can be very varied. In fact, when you fill the DAF, UPSC itself asks what was your motivation to go down this road, and it will vary from person to person, especially depending on the kind of diversity we have in this country. Like coming from different backgrounds, one can have a very different reason as to why they want to join the services. But ultimately, it has to be towards upholding the idea of India and cherishing the notion of development of its people and trying to work towards that. So if your desire is to enter into the civil services, it must be based on that foundation. And if that is true, it will actually help you cross this exam better, because that desire will always remain, that desire to know India better, to serve its people, and that will actually help in every stage of the examination. So that will be my message, that always cherish the principles on which the service stands and on which this country stands, and that would help you in this journey.
So there are a lot of students in Delhi University who prepare for this examination. Delhi being again the zone where again a lot of aspirants come and prepare for the examination. So how maybe your journey as a Delhi University student, maybe where again students come prepare for examination. So was it something you started in the initial leg of your college, or was it something you started later once you completed your graduation?
So, sir, because it was a deliberate choice that I have to come to Delhi University and start preparing for civil services, in the second year of my college, I joined a coaching institute for my foundation classes. And I also had the fortune that my mother came and stayed with me in Delhi. So she was here for on and off for about 5 to 6 years with me. So we took a flat near my college, near Kirori Mal itself, and she used to support me. I used to go to the coaching institute, study, come back, and my days used to be split between going to college in the morning and going to coaching in the evening. So by the time my third year came to an end, that was the same time in which my first prelims rolled about. And I was fortunate enough to clear it with that sort of a preparation, which was very jumbled at that point of view. Back in those days, the online coaching market had not yet flourished in that manner, and therefore the resources were not as freely available. But as of today, I would also say that a lot of people who come to Delhi University or to Delhi simply for the purpose of preparing for civil services, I think there is a far greater freedom available, even if you stay back home and if you have a good background, if you have a good support system back there. All you need is an internet connection, and almost every resource will be available to you.
So again, this examination demands a lot of patience, a lot of perseverance, again, and a lot of disciplined way of study. Many people, again, who solely prepare for the examination, many times struggle in terms of time management. But again, you did it along with your college, right? So it is somehow, what is the message that how you should balance your college along with your preparation for this examination?
So if you have decided that you are going to prepare for civil services, and if you have any other commitment apart from that, you have to make sure that every other minute spent outside that commitment goes towards your preparation, because this exam demands that from you. So an ideal schedule for me at any point of this examination was that I used to wake up at 4 o'clock almost every day when I was preparing for it. And I used to have one study session before my breakfast. Followed by that, if I took a 1 hour break, and then back, if I have to go to college, I used to go to college, but once that was over, it was back to studies. Around lunch, I used to get up in the evening, maybe I had some time off for myself, but then again, the rest of my day was spent in studying itself. So it does not really matter whether you're just writing papers or you're doing something, but you have to dedicate a lot of time to it. So if you're going to college, if you have some work, if you are someone who's employed, you need to make sure that every minute spent outside that commitment goes towards this examination.
Again, one very important aspect that again, as you told, with your college, with your examinations, you cleared prelims examination, right? So what was your strategy, right? Again, what you followed, was it a deliberate only prelims strategy for that particular year, or you were prepared for mains as well? So basically, I wanted to ask, maybe what was your preparation strategy in your first attempt? That again, you started with basic NCERT books, then followed by some standard books. What was it?
So for my prelims, because I was doing it alongside my college at that point of time, I had just started off, so I did not have a lot of idea as to how I should proceed. All I could do practically was my static preparation only. So I could only prepare the NCRTs, the main books, and my coaching notes. I could not realistically have gone and read newspaper to that extent every day or to cover multiple magazines. However, towards the end of the year, when the prelims was just about to roll, I used to refer to compilations such as PT365, and I also used to give a lot of mocks. So mock papers and test papers were the pillar of my preparation for prelims, and that is something I did in my first attempt because I had no other recourse. But because it paid such good dividends, that is the approach that I carried through my other attempts. So my strategy was to give as many papers, as many questions as I could. Earlier I used to buy test series online, and later if my friends had it, I used to refer to them. But after a point of time, it actually became like I wanted to solve 15,000 questions in the last 2 months before prelims. And if I was done with that, I used to be very satisfied that my prelims was gonna get qualified.
Certainly solving a lot of questions, maybe diversify your understanding of questions, help you down to clear prelims examination, right? But there's a perception, again, many students feel that we read everything and then we write examination, right? We read everything and then we write an answer, right? So was it something you also followed, or you made it a point that, okay, no, I need to solve this amount of question before prelims examination, that is certainly going to help me, and this has worked for you as well? So what was your ideal strategy for prelims examination?
So I used to reverse engineer this whole thing. So like what happens is 2 months before prelims, people start to take out their Lakshmikants and start from the first chapter itself. But then doing this wastes a lot of time because there's no way you're going to cover the whole syllabus again starting from scratch. Instead, what I used to do was I used to download the thematic papers of the previous year. Generally, it used to be Visions test series of the previous year and that year. And I used to start with that. So if I want to prepare polity, I will have my polity notes at my side. But then I will also download all the thematic papers. It used to be around 5 or 6 if you combine 2 years. And I used to give them. Wherever I used to find that there's some new information or some static information I really do not know, I used to add it to my notes and register it in my mind. So using that approach, I was able to cover a lot more ground far quicker. And that way I had time to prepare other lists and other things which are important for that year's prelims. So it used to help in time management better if I started with the questions and then proceeded to the main book, instead of starting with the book and then going back to the questions.
Right. And what is the role of analyzing previous year question papers of UPSC, right? Which is important maybe to get to know what kind of options are there, what kind of questions they're asking. So was it something which you also followed?
Yes, sir, definitely. Among the 15,000 questions, around 1,000 questions used to be the previous year questions itself. So the analysis is very crucial for that. Even if those 1,000 questions are one which you're covering every year, it still has to be covered. Like in the sixth attempt that I've given, this sixth prelims, I think I'd had a very little time to prepare for it. I was involved because I had already gotten selected. I really did not start preparing that seriously. I had very little time to prepare, and the first 1,000 questions that I did was previous year questions, considering that even if I did not do other things, this has to be done. So if you do that, firstly, what happens is there are a number of repeated questions which will definitely come up. And if you're someone who's getting those wrong, you're missing 2 marks, 4 marks, 6 marks, just like that, which everyone else will get, every serious candidate will get. Apart from that, analyzing the options itself gives a lot of insight into what kind of questions UPSC is asking, and that will help you get an idea of how to guess, because prelims does require some amount of guesstimation to be done, and previous year questions provides the best light for that.
Okay, now coming to one more point that you said, that you referred your notes, you value added in your notes. So again, many people get confused that again, in fact, many standard books are itself in a form of a note. So what was your note making strategy, right? Whether you went for an online note making, whether an offline note making, or what exactly consisted your note making in this whole preparation journey?
So it was very dynamic, and it has changed through time because it has been so long. I think technology progressed alongside me when it came to this, because initially it was all handmade. I did used to, at that point of time, we used Evernote and all of these things. So I did have some soft notes for current affairs, whichever used to come, which I thought were really important. But then with time, I shifted from this approach. So like you're saying, there are some books which are available in the form of notes itself. So if I had PDF of those books, I used to simply jot down anything important on, I bought a tablet towards the later stages of my preparation. I used to jot down notes on it. So in itself, it became the book added on with my notes. Even my static books with time became very much mine because I wrote my notes onto it. When the COVID had come, at that point of time, we had a few months where the exam was still very far away, but you had something to do. So for some particular static portions of the syllabus, such as polity and history, I had made my own notes. So those were soft copy initially, and then I printed it out, and on that, I probably have written more than what I've typed. So with time, your notes will become denser and denser, especially if you're someone who's giving multiple attempts, because there's no other way to go about it. Those were, however, crisp notes which I used to prepare for revision. Apart from that, I personally have a habit of learning by writing. So if I was preparing for my optional or I was preparing for my general studies, if I was reading something, I used to have a habit of just scribbling everything down. Whether or not those notes survive or I throw them away, it does not matter. I used to write it just for the sake of writing it. So that is a strategy I've seen a lot of other people do, but it is not really mandatory. I feel that has helped me.
Okay. Now, again, you are one of the example who have cleared prelims in 5 attempts of the 6 attempts what you have got. So certainly you have mastered that quality and that criteria that again what is required to clear this prelims examination, right? So again prelims is approaching this year. So what was your strategy once you entered into the prelims room? You were given 2 hours and you need to solve question, right? So what was your prelims solving strategy, which is of course certainly going to help students who are writing examination this year?
So we'll talk about both the papers. So when it came to general studies, my strategy was not to fret about answering everything in one go. I used to cross out questions that I was sure I will not answer under any circumstances. So I used to keep one extra pen, preferably of another color, but some centers try to prevent that. So any question that I saw that this is not answerable, I used to cross it out. Any question in which I had come down to 2 options, I would answer it then and there because I did not know how much time it would take in the second round. And any question in which I had eliminated one, I was left with 3, I used to leave those options for later. So in my first go, I used to attempt somewhere around 50 to 55 questions, and then the remaining 25 or 20 to 25 would be done in the second go, and that used to be around the last 20 minutes. So generally an ideal strategy would be to have 3 goes, like that is what I used to hear from my seniors, but personally I feel with time, the length of questions has increased, even in prelims. So it takes a lot of time to read that, process it, and then come up with an answer. So 2 clean sweeps is enough. However, there can be some questions that you do not do in the second sweep. If you have time, you can go for it in the third one. That used to be my strategy for general studies. And far as also another thing that I used to do was, if I used to see that the questions like A, B, C, D sections, through time I've seen section A used to start with polity or economics, which used to be on a generally static side, whereas C or D used to have science and tech in the beginning. So I was prepared for that. I was prepared that I may get a paper in which the first 20 questions are going to be tricky. So I used to brace ki if I get that set, I will not worry because the easier questions are coming. It will be there in the end. In fact, the one attempt when I did not qualify prelims, I solely blame it on that reason. So what had happened, I got the paper, it was set C, I think it was science, and I did not know a lot because current affairs is something I did not used to focus on. And in that feeling that I'm not answering any of these questions, I started fretting. And I missed a lot of easy questions towards the middle because I was fearing that I've missed a lot of easy ones in the beginning. So that confidence sort of staggered in the mid of the paper. And I realized this when I came out of the hall, that a lot of easy questions have gone unanswered. So this was a mistake I did not make later on. When it comes to CSAT, my strategy was very clear. It was only high accuracy. It was never about answering a certain number of questions. My strategy was, if I'm answering 35 questions, I have to make sure all 35 are correct. So I used to begin with mathematics, because that in those questions you can be certain that the answer that you have given, and if it matches with one of the options that UPSC has given, it is a correct answer. So I used to start with that, and after a point when I felt that I've had a decent number of them in the bag, I used to proceed towards the language section, and I used to cover around 10 to 15 of them in the last 20-25 minutes, and generally that has paid good dividends. I've never had a problem with CSAT.
Now coming to one more aspect of prelims examination day, there are many students who see the cutoff, and cutoff certainly has been varying since year. There are years where again cutoffs have been in the early 70s, late 80s, 90s, 100s, and it has been varying year to year. But many, did you had anything in mind that this is the ideal number of question I need to attempt, or was it something you decided once you saw the question paper?
So the knowledge of how many questions you have to attempt, according to me, it comes from how many questions you have given in the last 2 months. So those 15,000 questions that I'm talking about, it used to teach me what kind of questions am I good at doing guesswork in. So whenever those questions, only 1, only 2, only 3, only 4 options came, at that point of time, I was not prepared for it. So I knew that if I am going to make a guesswork in this, there's a greater possibility and probability of me going wrong. So I did not attempt any of them when it came for the first time in 2022. Generally, my strategy was to attempt somewhere upwards of 80 because you need to have an appetite. Because you'll know around 50 questions, you will know, but you need to have an appetite to solve a few more. Otherwise, it is very difficult to get over 100. And so my strategy used to vary within the hall. It was not pre-decided that I'm going to attempt 80, 85, 90 questions like that. But based on what I'd prepared, when I sat in the hall, I used to look at the paper and used to guess what I believe would be an ideal expected attempts here. So in the last 3 attempts, I attempted around 75, but in the early 3 attempts, I used to attempt around 85. So that was simply based on my understanding of what paper is presented before me.
One more aspect, which of course the very initial students who prepare, who are just entered into the preparation zone, face that issue of preparing for current affairs, right? And certainly, maybe though current affairs does not constitute a major portion of questions in prelims examination, but again, certainly they have a lot of weightage. So, how exactly will you suggest the aspirants who are preparing in their first attempt to prepare for current affairs? Is newspaper reading necessary? Or maybe you are complementing it with the magazines which you discussed? What is the strategy which one should follow?
For me, newspaper reading has always been very tedious. I was not able to do it consistently for any amount of time because I used to think that a lot of time is being wasted on it. So I feel the importance of newspapers in my journey has been more in mains than in prelims. For prelims, I used to rely on the yearly compilation of current affairs. So it used to be PT365 or such compilations like that. And I used to refer to my static knowledge even to solve my current affairs questions. So if there's a question which talks about a particular trade deal or a treaty or a initiative being launched by a particular country, I used to think, is that country or are the principles and values of that country aligning with the principles and values of what is being talked about? If they used to align, there is a good possibility it could be correct. And then I used to make that guesswork there. But my static knowledge used to be the foundation on which I used to answer my current affairs questions. Apart from that, even though I've read compilations, I rarely feel that something from the compilations directly came up. It was more of a static knowledge, but yes, you do need to have a sense of confidence that you've covered an year's worth of current affairs. If you read any compilation once or twice, PT365 is a very good recommendation for it. You do it twice and you will be confident that, okay, you have done it. And then you will not worry about it. And all you need in the hall is to not have that anxiety with you. As long as that is not there, you'll answer the questions well.
So, did you make notes for current affairs as well from the newspapers or from the magazines, right?
So not from a prelims point of view. From a mains point of view, I used to do that. So especially for collecting data and statistics for GS1 and GS3, I used to pick up a lot of information from the newspapers. But that used to be within those 3 months between prelims and mains. I did not used to refer to backdated newspapers for that.
Now we are done with prelims. Now we'll enter into mains. So in your first attempt, of course, you wrote it along with the college and you cleared prelims examination. So again, in your first attempt, were you prepared for your mains examination before prelims preparation, or was it something you were not sure that again I'm going to qualify examination and something if I qualify I'm going to do it after my prelims? So what was your strategy?
So I was not expecting to qualify prelims in that attempt because I was doing it concurrently with coaching. So my syllabus in itself had not been prepared for mains. When I wrote the paper, I attempted around 10 to 12 questions per GS paper, and even in optional, like that was even worse. I had attempted a lot of questions I had no clue about as to what area of the syllabus has it come from. So in the first mains, I was not really well prepared for anything. I just gave it to the best of my understanding and knowledge, but that was not really a mains I count well for me. However, it gave me good learning as to what I have to go better doing forward, and that was all I could derive from that attempt.
Now coming that again, what is the importance you feel is of answer writing, right? Because again, the time we are left with between prelims and mains, it is certainly very less, 2.5 months or 2 months roughly. So one should start answer writing at what stage of the preparation?
So I believe if someone is starting from scratch, they should start answer writing the moment the first subject is over. So let us say you started with modern history or with polity, anything. Once that is over and you have moved on to the next subject, that is an ideal time for you to start writing some answers of the subject that you have already covered. So it can be very early on in the process. You're never going to write perfect answers. And the thing is, if you stop at that, if you do not write an answer at that point of time, it becomes even more difficult 2 months down the line to start writing it. Because then you will feel that, oh, it has been 3-4 months since I studied that subject. It was the first time I studied something. So it's better to start answer writing as early as possible. However, the bulk of answer writing has to be between prelims and mains, because there has to be that muscle memory connection that is made, and that is the time when you do most of it. But you cannot start from scratch at that point of view. That is the time when you are actually in a, like, it's a beast mode type of answer writing. You're writing just morning to night. But you need to know the principles of answer writing beforehand.
Many people have this clarity in mind that this is required for the examination, but again they don't do it. There is some kind of a hesitation which comes to one's mind. Nahi sab kuch pad lenge, then we'll write down the answers, right? So did you had this any kind of hesitation in your mind as well, or you were sure, this is something which is required? Because as you said, you are not prepared completely for your first mains examination. So what was your mistakes, what you analyzed, which you catered into your future attempts of mains?
So unfortunately, I carried over the mistakes of my first attempt even to my second mains, which I gave in 21. So that year as well, I just prepared a lot. So I had finished my syllabus largely, but I felt that just finishing syllabus would be more than enough. Answer writing, I wrote a couple of papers here and there. None of it got over in 3 hours. And I thought on the day of the examination, I'm going to write it and qualify this exam very easily. And then I got a score which was even worse than the first attempt. So I got 50 marks less than what I had got in my first attempt in my second mains. So that was when I realized that this can no longer work. And at that point of time, it was my parents who actually sat me down. They were like, your strategy is not working. You have to do answer writing and you have to do it from now. So basically for answer writing, that at that point of time, two things came to my mind which has helped me. One was that you need accountability check, because you need to finish the paper in 3 hours. Initially, you will not be able to do that. And the tendency is you write for 3 hours, you have written 16 questions and then you leave. Instead, what my mother used to do was, she used to say, until you have written all the answers, you're not getting your next meal. So you cannot get up from your seat. So you have to sit there and write 20 questions. When you start feeling the pain of writing for 4 hours, you will yourself try to shorten your sentences, you will try to answer crisply and get it down to 3 hours. And that will be a very good tool later on in the examination. So the first thing is you need to have accountability to yourself, and you can have other people act as accountability partners for you. Secondly, you need to be very certain that you are not going to write perfect answers at any point of time. No topper ever writes a good answer. Even the rank 1 of any year does not write a good answer. All they do is write the least worst answer possible for that question. So within those 8 minutes, you can only do that much justice to an answer. You need to have enough to fill 2 sheets to 3 sheets on any answer. So once you get this ingrained in your mentality, you will not try to be a perfectionist in writing an answer. And once you do that, you will start writing answers in 3 hours. And if you do that, you will find your name in the list. So it is it's a process which just clicks in. One thing follows the other, as long as you're certain about what you're doing.
So now after your second attempt, you got a clarity that answer writing is required. So thereafter, you wrote answers every day, or you wrote answers in batches. What was your way of writing down the answers down the line with your third mains?
So fortunately, after my third attempt, every single time I've given prelims, I've written mains and then gone to the interview. So between prelims and mains, obviously it used to be bulk of answer writing. I used to write at least, I think it was 10 to 15 papers per general studies paper. So like around 60 papers it used to be. And then I used to write abhyas. That was like one thing I used to religiously do. I used to plan my GS preparation to match with abhyas timings, so that the rest of my timings revolve with my optional and my essay paper, but my GS papers would be going concurrently with when abhyas is going to happen. So that way I used to also get a lot of time for revision before the examination. So that helped a lot. Those 3 months of answer writing were the main answer writing phase. Followed by that, because I went into the interview mode, I did not used to write answers a lot. But those 2 to 3 months that I used to get between prelims and mains, it used to be very deeply devoted towards answer writing. So, and that has been the only change I've made. My knowledge, I do not think it expanded after my third attempt. It has only been writing answers and then checking it with what other people are writing. A lot of time I did not even used to turn in my answers, whichever coaching institute I was buying them from. I used to check them against other good copies, because you need to know what your peers are writing, because they have also got the same time constraints, the resource constraints, And within those 8 to 10 minutes, if they are writing an answer which you visibly see is better than yours, you need to start picking up content from theirs and putting it in you. So I think this is a very good initiative. A lot of coaching institutes have this. Vision has its good copy section, and I think that used to be, I have visited that more than anything else. So it used to be download as many good copies as I can, just go through it and inculcate whatever good I find there into my answers.
So topper copies and analysis certainly help you down to maybe analyze what kind of answers you're writing and which are the areas you need to improve yourself.
Yes, sir.
Right. So now one more aspect that again we will very briefly go through all the 4 GS papers and what was your strategy. Let's start with paper 1. Right. So what has been your strategy when it comes to history, society and geography?
So when it came to society and geography, both of them had a very good overlap with my optional, which was geography. So for those sections, I used to rely largely on my optional knowledge because like knowledge about tribes and languages, all of these things we also study under geography. When it came to history, it used to be generally based on what the previous year questions were. You can sort of predict, you will, at the end of the day, most people are very well prepared with modern history. So the content there would not be lacking. It is more about writing them in a concise manner within 8 to 10 minutes. And I used to create a lot of frameworks. So let us say if a question comes on a personality, I used to have a framework ready in mind as to what aspects I have to touch regarding a personality. So let us say we are talking about Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. So then I will talk about the movements he was involved in, his contribution towards society as well as towards politics. If there's some economic contribution, I could break it down into post-independence and pre-independence era contributions. So a framework used to be prepared for every theme. So whether it is personalities, it used to be one theme. If it is a movement, let us say non-cooperation movement, civil disobedience movement, for those it was a separate thing. If it was about an organization, then again a separate thing. An event it would be. So around 5 to 10 frameworks could be prepared for every subject. And once you have that, you will be easily able to place in the content and then just write down the answers.
So certainly it is a very good strategy where again you have something in mind. This is a framework I'm going to write down and you just need to fill in with the facts. So that in the actual examination, you need not to think what is the kind of structure I'm going to write on the examination. Certainly a very good strategy. Right. Now paper 2 and paper 3, again with the nature of questions being asked, these are the most 2 dynamic papers. They have a lot of contemporary touch to the static part of syllabus. So how did you prepare these 2 papers specifically whenever these are the 2 most dynamic papers where again questions have been a lot more on the current affairs side?
So sir, for these 2 papers, I really believe newspaper reading will give you some good payoffs because you'll be able to derive a lot of statistics, data and opinions which can be very easily placed in the answers from this question, in these questions. When we come to GS2, I used to refer to my notes on basic structure and all of those aspects which are very repeated. So there are a lot of repeated themes in polity which can be very well prepared. Polity is one section which you can completely cover leaving no gaps. And even there I used to have my structures very well made. So if it was an institution, whether it was NHRC or CBI does not matter, statutory or constitutional. If it is an institution, I know that this is the structure of my answer. These are the aspects I'll touch upon. And then I used to place in my prelims knowledge, my previous knowledge into those. When it came to other aspects, the most dynamic part of GS2 would be the international relations as well as the various schemes and initiatives of the government. So for them, again, my fallback was always my static understanding of that topic, added upon with whatever contemporary developments have been made. So the budget, the economic survey are generally areas from which these themes come up. I used to refer to them very seriously. And data and statistics I used to cramp in as much as possible because that I believe gives you an edge. Writing as many examples as you can to just substantiate what you're trying to say, referring to various committees. So this is something everyone does, but you have to be very thoroughly prepared so that you do not lose out on marks. GS2 is one paper where everyone is going to answer well, but you have to make sure you do not fall back in the race for getting good marks.
So that is certainly which provided you an edge.
Yes, sir. So that has helped me get a decent score every year, which has, otherwise what happens is even if one paper goes wrong, that is where you start getting out of the list. Similarly, sir, in GS3, I think that was the paper I made the most difference in because in my second mains, third attempt, I had gotten 67 marks. And that was the time I decided that I have to change the strategy completely. So at that point of time, I decided I'll no longer study for GS3 in silo. I will refer to my geography optional content to completely prepare my GS3 subject. So fortunately for me, geography has a very good overlap. So I used to have economic geography and environmental geography, both of which I used to cover well. And that I used to integrate with my GS3. that issue.
So certainly all the papers should not be seen in a serious manner, as you discussed, right? There has to be a multi-dimensional approach for that, right? Okay, now coming to paper number 4, right, where again ethics, integrity and aptitude, which is certainly new to the whole, maybe last decade again we have started this particular paper. What was your strategy where again we talk about honesty, we think about integrity, but again now we have to write answers, right? And certainly answers where again it is going to be 150 words, 250 words answers. So how was your strategy and what was the strategy for ethics paper?
So I think, unfortunately, ethics has become one of those papers where the most amount of structuring is possible. Even though it was supposed to be more dynamic so that you get to know the actual opinions of the candidates, but that actually helps you approach this paper more easily. Even though there is a far more dynamicity to the questions than it would be in the other three, as long as you are very clear about what every single keyword stands for. You need to be very thorough with your syllabus, especially in GS4. Every single word has a meaning, and it has a whole branch of subjects from which, keywords from which you have to derive meaning. So I had my notes prepared for ethics very clearly. Initially I relied on Anudeep Durishetty sir's notes for it, but then later on I also substantiated it with coaching notes and also information that I used to get from other topper copies and model answers of test series. With that, I had a very clear framework, especially when it came to the case studies portion. So case studies is something I've always been very confident in. I used to make it as dynamic as possible, touch as many different aspects as possible. So I used to go beyond just ethics. I also used to touch upon the legality of something. I used to touch upon the public administration point of view of something. If you are someone who is, let us say you are an SP of a district and you've been given a scenario, I also used to think about the impact it would have on the organization. Even though these are subjects which are there in the syllabus, a lot of time we only stick on the ethical issues. But there are far more issues to go into when we are talking about GS4. When it came to section A, there it used to be, I had very little time. Everyone has very little time to answer those questions because I used to attempt section B first. So in there, it used to just be whatever comes to my mind when I look at a keyword and all the examples that I've prepared beforehand. So preparing a lot of examples beforehand is very, very necessary when it comes to GS4 because there's so much to write and so much overlapping content. Like it is very difficult to differentiate integrity and honesty when there are 3 consecutive questions talking about both of them in some way or the other. So your examples will start to look stale and it will start to look what everyone else is writing. So there you have to refer to some differentiating material and be very thorough with it. So revision is very important in GS4.
So what kind of examples, where did you got such examples which you are discussing as of now?
So firstly, I had also created a framework to generate examples. One of them was like mythological, then something from international affairs, something from economics field. So I used to like a pestle sort of approach for generating examples. Apart from that, towards the end, I also started using ChatGPT a lot to formulate various like hypothetical. I could also generate hypothetical examples.
Okay.
This is something also that a lot of toppers have also done and it has paid very good dividends. If you are not able to come up with a real example, you can say, let us imagine there's a girl or a boy who does this. And that can be a good example to substantiate because all you need to do is substantiate your content with a scenario. So it is good if you have a real world example, but if not that, you should also be prepared to create hypothetical scenarios.
Right. So again, to achieve this idea of seeing things in a multi-dimensional approach, you need to analyze the syllabus of examination, which certainly plays a very crucial role. How important it is for a candidate to at least understand the 4 GS paper syllabus, and it is very important. What is your take on it?
So definitely syllabus is the first thing that you should read when you start getting into the civil services journey. And you should imbibe the whole syllabus because once you have the syllabus in your mind, it actually acts like a chest of drawers. So whenever you get a new information, you know where to place it in your memory. So if you've gotten, let us say a new development happens, let us take for instance Operation Sindoor. Now this will have repercussions on international relations. It has got aspects which relate to defense. It also has aspects relating to economy because our defense exports will get affected due to it. It will have impact on society because of the communal tensions that can generate or have generated before that. So you can join a lot of different links of the same topic to a lot of different aspects of the syllabus, but you need to keep the syllabus in mind in order to place it there. Now, if you are able to quote an Operation Sindoor themed example in a society answer, that would give you an edge. That would give you a dynamic perspective. That would let the examiner know you have a dynamic perspective and a whole perspective on something instead of looking at it from a singular lens.
Now talking about essay writing, right? Because essay writing one aspect where again we do not have a very well defined areas from where questions could be asked, and there have been a lot of maybe nature of questions which has been asked by UPSC. So what was your strategy for essay writing? Was it something which you did before your prelims, or was it something you did after your prelims? What was your actual strategy?
So for essay writing, I used to give the time only after prelims. In my initial attempts, I did not write a lot of essays, and I got really good scores at that point of time. But with time, I think UPSC has re-evaluated the kind of paradigm it wants to evaluate essays against, and it has changed to some extent. So no longer does the pestle approach work, no longer does a structured format work there. So you have to be more free-flowing in that. So the main changes that I've made in the last few attempts have been, I have tried not to write essays to cater to a UPSC audience. I've tried to write essays which cater to a general audience, because mostly the essays are checked by English professors and they would like to have a layman's perspective on it. They may not be as aware about jargons and keywords. So they would want you to explain or to assert an idea in a manner that it goes down the throat of anyone. So I used to write my essays and I used to give it to evaluation to my peers who were no longer, not at all in the field of UPSC. Sometimes it could be my parents, sometimes I sent it to my brother, even my friends from my school who had nothing to do with UPSC. And the feedback that I got from them used to be far more valuable, because that is when I started realizing, okay, wait, this is something I'm writing which absolutely goes over their head. It makes no sense. And or I'm writing something which looks very structured. So I tried to make it as free-flowing as possible, not bounded down by compulsorily writing an anecdote or compulsorily writing some sort of pestle approach in it. So that was my strategy.
Now coming to your option paper, certainly you were very sure that again that geography is going to be my paper, and again you chose intentionally geography as your graduation subject. So was your optional ready once you graduated, once after 3 years of your study of a graduation? Because mostly the syllabus of an optional paper is aligned with the syllabus of general of a graduation paper. So was your optional ready by then, or was it not something complete, and did you specifically wrote any answers or maybe specifically prepared for optional again as far as the demand of UPSC examination?
So even though I took graduation subject as geography thinking that I'll cover the optional syllabus with it, that is never the case, because the kind of way in which you learn geography in college is very different from what UPSC requires. You may get some insights and some geographical way of thinking, but apart from that, essentially the syllabus of optional is way too vast and the questions that are being asked are way too dynamic. So it has reached a point where geography seems like a general studies paper in itself. You have to induce geography in it in some way or the other. Also, the syllabus is way too vast. So when you look, even if you look at geomorphology, which is just one unit in one paper, it in itself covers a lot of ground. So it took a lot of effort for me to try to cover geography comprehensively. In fact, I would say I've still not completely covered it comprehensively, but answer writing is something that I lacked in the first few attempts, and that is what actually led to reduction of scores. In the last attempt, this attempt, I think I had a 20-30 mark gain over what I had last year, and that was because I focused more on answer writing. So in geography or in any optional, the questions are far more static. It does come from a specific pool of questions. So if you're well prepared with that, if you have your structures made for that, and you have practiced all of that, especially when it comes to geography, map marking, drawing lots of diagrams, case studies, and also being ready to draw those diagrams on every single page is a skill that you have to master. And once you do that, you'll be able to get returns from it.
Now coming to the final stage, that is your personality test. What was your preparation strategy when it comes to the interview stage, right? So was it something you prepared very religiously, or was it something which maybe carry for your maybe your mains knowledge carry forward, and again maybe you value added on that particular aspect?
So, sir, in my first attempt, I had prepared very thoroughly for my interview. So, like, I created a whole book based on what my DAF was, and the current affairs that was happening around me, and I had a lot of time to prepare. So, at that point of time, I took interview as a very separate aspect of preparation, and I got a very average score. I got 160 marks in that attempt, and that sort of made me realize that I really do not need to over prepare for this stage. I need to be able to hold a conversation and to steer a conversation towards what I wanted it to be. So my preparation after that was solely focused on knowing my DAF, So it is Socrates' philosophy, like know thyself is all I cared about after that. So as long as I knew everything that I've written in my DAF, as long as I was confident about what I've written in my DAF, I did not used to prepare specifically for interview a lot, because I do not believe that the questions that are asked in the interview are current affairs. It is contemporary affairs. And those are aspects on which you can hold a conversation. If you have reached the interview stage, you do have that much general awareness of the world. So my preparation became very concise, it became very narrow, and I think that made me more confident towards the end.
It is also maybe one of the important fact that you need to be opinionated whenever it comes to your interview stage or your personality, because again it is going to be a test of personality, and of course your opinion will tell about your personality. So again, what is a kind of message which you like to give to the aspirants, that again how they should get opinionated, where again there are a lot of things happening around the country, there are a lot of people having different opinion, but what kind of opinion is required for this particular examination, or for letting you know this kind of services, where again we're going to work with the government?
So I have personally felt that opinion-based questions are the best. In fact, I try to steer any interview towards an area where they ask me my opinions on any topic, and then when I have it in front of me, I have a very simple principle. It is to stick by the Constitution no matter what, and that means to look at the Constitution as a whole. So my opinions will always be derived from principles which form the backbone of the Constitution in a way that is interpreted by the Supreme Court or by the general understanding of the Constitution. So even if there is a question which asks me to be opinionated towards something, I will balance it with the principles which are being enshrined in the Constitution and use it to stick by my stand. Sometimes there will be situations in which the board may try to provoke a statement out of you, but you have to make sure that you stick by your opinion because you are certain that what you are saying is an acceptable thing to say and is the right thing to say. And that I think helps me navigate those situations pretty easily.
Now we'll move forward to some of other aspects of preparation, where again it is certainly told that you need to lock yourself up in a room, and again you need to study religiously for all the time what you have left, right? So is it something which you also followed, and was it something which changed gradually, and what is your take, maybe your experience of last 6 years, that again how should a student prepare for this examination, whether he needs to cut off from the entire social life and whatever life, and again he need to completely prepare for the examination, or can it be balanced as well?
So there has to be a certain amount of balancing, because especially if you're someone who has not just cleared it in one attempt, you're not one of those fortunate ones who have just cleared just fresh out of college, then you are going to spend some time, and that is time of your life that you're devoting somewhere, and you cannot really just cut your ties, sever your ties with the society and then become a ascetic and then take this attempt, because ultimately the attempt, your life is being shaped by people around you, and that those are the people shaping your personality. Those are the people for whom you are giving this exam to some extent as well. So I believe one has to draw a distinction between social media and social life. So I tried to distance myself from social media to whatever extent possible. That did not mean absolutely no social media. Once in a while, I may just go on Instagram, check out what is happening with my friends' life, and then log out of it. When I feel that I'm really getting addicted to reels and stuff, that is the time you know that you're doing something wrong, and that is the time you have to take a step back. But social life, I really feel that is something that keeps you sane, that keeps you mentally healthy. Like throughout my examination process, I had my girlfriend, who's now who will now be my fiance. So she was a pillar of support. She helped me prepare notes for geography because she was from my college. My parents, my brother, he used to talk to me regularly to give me inputs about like, in fact, this time I had a couple of questions from army and police in my interview, which was very like I've nowhere mentioned that about my brother and my DAF, but it fortunately came and we had a discussion on that. So the more people you talk to, the more support you will feel and the more valuable inputs you'll get in your life. So cutting yourself off from social life is not a practical thing, but cutting yourself from social media is something that I believe can be done and should be practiced to whatever extent possible.
Now it has been 6 years, and 6 years is not a small time, right? And to be disciplined, to be passionate about something so much that again this is something I want to achieve, this is about something I want to get in my life, this is what kept you motivated, right? But again there are situations during preparation journey where again there are ups and there are downs as well, right? So had you any downs in your preparation journey?
Definitely, sir. There were two very specific ones which come to my mind right now. One was during COVID. So that was a bad time for everyone. Even like my dad also in the second phase, he also came down with COVID, and that was a time in which it became very difficult to actually concentrate on stuff. And you do not want to like give your time towards other things when you feel that this is not going anywhere, and there are people back at home who are not doing well. So at that point of time, I think again it was the support of my family, my relatives, that kept me sane, knowing that I have to keep walking down this path. And then when it comes to the journey in itself, when I did not qualify after my first interview, which was in my fourth attempt, that was the time when only 5 days were remaining for the next prelims, and I actually did not want to give the attempt anymore. I actually thought that this is done. I no longer want to walk down this path. I was also pursuing law somewhere in Delhi University, and I thought that this is a very good career opportunity. I should also go ahead with this. But my friends and family, they were the ones who actually pushed me. They said, just give this prelims and then leave UPSC for good if you really feel that you no longer want to do it. And that is the attempt in which I actually got into the IPS. So sometimes you do not really know what your potential is, and it is your friends and family who step in to let you know that, okay, you can do it, just keep walking down this path. So whenever those lows come, you have to have people around you. You need to have a support system which actually pulls you up from that and keeps you walking down that path.
So certainly your lows were somewhere where again your family, your friends stepped up, and again they helped you to regain the confidence and regain the discipline which you were. But again, certainly it is your perseverance or your passion which led to your success in this examination. Now, finally, any last moment message, because prelims is approaching very near. We are again just a week before prelims examination. Any specific message to our students who are going to write examination this year of prelims?
So two things. One would be specific to prelims, and one would be what to do after it. So when it comes to UPSC in itself, 1 week is remaining. This is the time one should only focus on previous year questions and to prepare whatever listicles and important current lists that are out there, like environment, polity, these topics, because that is all human mind can retain at this point of time. And just be very confident that whatever preparation has happened, has happened. And if you're in the hall with yourself, you're competing with others. You're not competing with yourself. You don't need to get 200 marks out of 200. You need to be just better than the people sitting next to you. And some of them have not really put in the effort. You have. So if you're confident in your effort, be very sure that you will give a good attempt. Once prelims is done, if you have given an attempt in which you feel that there's even a slight chance that you can write mains, this time only 2 months are there between prelims and mains. You should make use of that space judiciously. In case prelims does not go as well, I have talked about this earlier also, you must try to explore other options as well. Like when I did not qualify my prelims in the second attempt, I remember my dad told me to sit for the BPSC examination, even though it was not my plan to go into the state civil services. But simply based on whatever I'd studied for UPSC and using some content from Spardha, I was able to qualify the entire examination with very ease. I did not really prepare for any stage, and I got a rank, I got into a service, but I did not chose not to join it at that point of time. So the thing is, even if you're not able to qualify prelims once and twice, you need to get a taste of success in this journey. Try to recalibrate your preparation, try to give some other examinations as well, so that you get that sense of confidence, because it can be a very lengthy journey, it can be a very lonely journey. So you need to have some success that backs you up with it. So that would be my message.
Thank you, Ritwik, for
so
coming
much,
here again, sharing your experience with us. And we at Vision IS maybe wish you all the very best. And we are very proud that we have been some small part and some part in your preparation journey. All the very best.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, viewers. Now, this was a very inspirational journey of Ritwik, what we discussed today. And this is certainly going to help you down in your preparation journey. Learn from his mistakes and learn from his discipline, learn from his patience, learn from his passion for this examination, which helped him to successfully achieve his dream of getting into Indian administrative services. So all the very best, and thank you so much for watching the video.